This crazy girl first shot her boyfriend multiple times, but then had a change of heart and saved his life. He shockingly went after this former reality star with a hammer. And this OnlyFans star was filming and then fell off a balcony. Was there foul play involved? Let's get right to just a few of the saddest and most shocking crimes committed. Starting with number 6, the complete 360. Elvis Muñoz thought he wasn't going to make it. His girlfriend, Alexys Pinto, had just emptied her firearm into him, then stood over him, frustrated that he was still alive. But all of a sudden, she suddenly changed her mind, and for whatever reason, she drove to get him help where paramedics saved his life. Months later, despite nearly ending his life, Pinto walked free on bail. Now Muñoz lives with permanent injuries, the fear that she'll come back, and the realization that the justice system wasn't built to protect him. Muñoz, a mechanic, had been in a 3-year relationship with Pinto when the relationship took a pretty dark turn. Apparently, Pinto was enraged after someone had dropped off a car to Muñoz to fix earlier, which set her off, possibly because she was feeling ignored. So she lashed out about it, getting a bit physical. And when he grabbed her wrists to stop her, the situation escalated. She then attempted to kick one of their dogs before suddenly shifting gears, asking him to take her to see the sunset. But when they arrived, she ran from the car, screaming at him about deer hunting or something, and began cursing. Before he could figure out what was happening, she pulled out a firearm and started popping off rounds at point-blank range. The incident was extremely bad, with Muñoz being hit multiple times. According to his account, Pinto later expressed regret, not for the act itself, but for failing to end him quickly, which is pretty cold if you ask us. Muñoz fought to stay alive despite his injuries. When Pinto finally ran out of bullets, he managed to convince her to take him to a gas station for help, using desperate words of love to manipulate her into seeking medical assistance. He was rushed to the hospital, where he underwent multiple surgeries. While he survived, the damage was severe. His hands, once his tools for work, were left with limited movement. Pinto was arrested and charged, and initially, her bail was set at $75,000. But in a controversial decision, a judge lowered it to just $10,000. Muñoz and his family were in disbelief that someone who committed such an act could be allowed back into society so soon. The court justified its decision by citing Pinto's mental health, though many believe that should have been the very reason to keep her detained rather than granting her freedom. Despite being ordered to stay away from Muñoz and his family, the fear remains. He now lives with permanent physical injuries and the emotional trauma of nearly being ended by someone he once loved. Meanwhile, Pinto walks free with an ankle monitor, and as of the release of this video, is expected to go to trial in early 2025. Mental health issues can deeply affect relationships, as we see here. The problem is that while they can be just as debilitating as a lost limb, they're often visible. It's sad that things escalated to this, and while Pinto's reaction was far beyond anything acceptable, she's very clearly troubled. There's a lot more going on here than meets the eye, and we hope she gets some help. Number 5. Toyed with. Marie Naegle, a former reality TV contestant, vanished after a night out, only for her family to uncover surprising evidence that led to a terrible discovery. Known for her time on Bridalplasty, Naegle was a nurse and instructor whose sudden disappearance in 2016 sent her loved ones on a desperate search. The truth behind what happened to her and the involvement of her secret boyfriend, Jackie Jerome Rogers, turned out to be far worse than anyone imagined. Naegle, a 36-year-old nurse and nursing instructor, attended a friend's birthday party at Alpine Village in Torrance, California, on the night of December 17, 2016. She never returned home. When her family reported her missing, the police initially told them they had to wait 72 hours before an investigation could begin. Frustrated by the delay, they took it upon themselves to investigate and uncovered surveillance footage showing her leaving the party with Rogers. Rogers, who had been romantically involved with Naegle despite her being married, initially denied any wrongdoing. However, evidence quickly contradicted his claims when investigators found Naegle's body buried in a shallow grave in his backyard. It was later revealed that Rogers had gone after Naegle in his car after the party, hitting her multiple times with a hammer. He later admitted to hitting her again before burying her, claiming he wanted to make sure the job was done. During his trial, Rogers' defense argued that he acted in the heat of passion, claiming that Naegle had toyed with his emotions and manipulated him. However, prosecutors pointed out that a co-worker had seen a hammer in his car a month prior, suggesting premeditation since it's not like he was a contractor or something. His attempts to clean the crime scene and dispose of evidence further undermined his claims. In 2018, Rogers was convicted of the first-degree crime, and in 2019, he was sentenced to 26 years to life in prison. While no one deserves harm, deep resentment and unspoken pain can push people to extremes, leaving lives shattered on both sides. Number 4. Unspecially cared. A tragic case of neglect happened in North Carolina when 22-year-old Dontarius Batts, a special needs man, lost his life after being left inside a hot car for over 8 hours. His caretaker, 55-year-old Rogers Lee Ing Jr., is facing charges. So, what on earth happened? Ing, employed by Universal Healthcare, was responsible for Batts' well-being. But instead of providing care, Ing brought Batts along to his second job as a janitor at Cleveland High School in Clayton, North Carolina, which wouldn't be a bad thing if it actually kept Batts with him. But around 8 a.m., Ing parked at the school, rolled up the windows, turned off the engine, and left Batts inside the car. According to police, Ing briefly checked on Batts around 10 a.m., so 2 hours later, and claimed the young man was fine. But he didn't return for another 6 hours. When Ing finally came back at 4:17 p.m., he found Batts unresponsive. Instead of calling 911 immediately, Ing drove to a fire station in Clinton where emergency responders declared Batts deceased. As of the release of this video, an autopsy is still pending, but authorities are pretty sure Batts succumbed to the heat. On that day, temperatures in the area reached 81 degrees, which isn't too bad for most of us sitting outside. But the problem is that inside a parked car, temperatures can climb to 123 degrees within an hour, creating a dangerous environment. Ing was arrested, charged, and booked into the Johnston County Jail on a $35,000 bond, but has since been released. The saddest part of this case is that Ing was entrusted with the care of someone who couldn't look after himself. Times are tough, and many people take on second jobs just to make ends meet. Ing may have felt stuck in a difficult position, and we get that. You gotta work and make money. But that doesn't excuse his actions, as taking care of a person is a huge responsibility. Leaving a dog in a car for 8 hours would be terrible and inhumane. Leaving a vulnerable person is even worse. Exasperating the situation, Ing didn't even crack the windows, leaving Batts trapped without food, water, or even the ability to use the bathroom. This tragedy was entirely preventable and speaks volumes about the level of care Ing was providing, knowledge that makes it all the more heartbreaking for Batts' family. Number 3. Mistaken intruder. Brandon Durham's tragic passing is a shocking case that raises troubling questions about law enforcement's handling of crisis situations. The 43-year-old father and realtor called 911 seeking help as his home was being invaded. But instead of receiving protection, he was taken out by a responding officer, Alexander Bookman. Durham had reported that 2 individuals were attempting to break into his Las Vegas home while his 15-year-old daughter was inside. By the time officers arrived, he had barricaded himself in a bathroom, fearing for his life. Officer Alexander Bookman and 2 other officers responded to the call, noticing visible damage to the home and hearing distress inside. Upon entering, Bookman found Durham struggling with the intruder, identified as Alejandra Boudreau, over a knife. The officer commanded them to drop the knife and within a second fired. Durham collapsed, but Bookman fired multiple additional rounds, ending Durham on the spot. The aftermath of the incident only compounded the tragedy. Durham's daughter, Isabella, was understandably outraged, condemning the officers for treating her father as if he were the suspect. she was left to witness the consequences of an officer's split-second decision. The family's grief was deepened by the revelation that Durham had been calling for help, but was mistakenly targeted instead. As the investigation unfolded, disturbing details emerged. Newly released body cam footage showed that Bookman had been to the home just a day earlier, responding to a trespassing call involving Boudreaux. Dispatch had identified the suspect as a male with a medium build, possibly contributing to a misjudgment that led to Durham's passing. Adding to the controversy, police initially withheld footage of the moments after the shooting, raising concerns about transparency. Further complicating the narrative, detectives later reported finding an illegal substance, something rhyming with the name Seth, in Durham's system. They also found other items that suggested the use of illegal substances in his home. While this detail added complexity, it didn't justify the sad and unfortunate shooting of a man who had called for help. The case has ignited calls for accountability, with Durham's family and civil rights attorneys demanding Bookman's arrest. As of the release of this video, Bookman remains on paid administrative leave, and Clark County officials have yet to determine whether charges will be filed. Watching the footage, it's difficult to distinguish who was who and what exactly was happening in the chaos, so it's reasonable that he got confused. In a high-pressure situation, even if Bookman had recently interacted with Durham, there was no guarantee he would immediately recognize him. The real tragedy is that this appears to have been entirely unintentional, yet the consequences don't care what the intention was. Number 2. Decorated cop. A tragic and shocking incident unfolded in Douglas County, Georgia, when off-duty Atlanta police investigator Aubrey Horton was taken out by a homeowner after allegedly breaking into a neighbor's house. The 39-year-old officer, who had served with the Atlanta Police Department since 2015 and who has in recent years been honored as Investigator of the Year, was found shirtless and without identification after forcing his way into the residence. Authorities released surveillance footage showing Horton running through the neighborhood before attempting to enter the home around 5:08 a.m. The homeowner's wife, who had just left for work, received multiple Ring doorbell notifications and quickly alerted 911. Inside, the homeowner was already awake and aware of the disturbance. When he cracked open the door to communicate with Horton, the officer allegedly forced his way inside, knocking the homeowner to the ground. Acting in self-defense, the homeowner discharged his firearm. Investigators were working to determine what led to Horton's behavior, but as of the release of this video, no updates have been publicly released. Officials suspect he may have been experiencing a mental health crisis or under the influence at the time. A toxicology report is pending as of the release of this video, but could take months to complete. The Douglas County Sheriff's Office released video footage to clarify events and dispel misinformation. Rumors falsely claimed that the homeowner was a high-ranking police official or that Horton had been involved in a domestic dispute. Authorities confirmed that Horton didn't know the homeowner and no charges will be filed against the resident. Horton's sudden and inexplicable actions stunned those who knew him. Just days before his passing, he was recognized for his outstanding work in law enforcement. The case raises concerns about mental health and substance use, particularly among those in high-stress professions. People in the St. Andrews Country Club community are still dealing with the tragedy. Such a crime is apparently rare in the area, making the incident all the more unusual. It's a sad situation for everyone involved. Number 1. Foul play possibilities. Brazilian OnlyFans star Ana Beatrix Pereira Alves, known as Ana Polly, tragically fell from a hotel balcony while filming a risque video, losing her life. The 27-year-old was reportedly in the middle of recording a scene with two men at the 4-star Mont Blanc Apart Hotel Nova Iguacu when the incident occurred. Her body was later discovered in the courtyard, covered by a white sheet, as investigators examined the scene. As this incident happened in late January of 2025, as of the release of this video, authorities are still piecing together what exactly happened that night. The two men present gave conflicting statements. Their inconsistent testimonies have raised suspicions about whether they may be hiding something. While they were released after questioning, as of the release of this video, investigators from the Baixada Fluminense police haven't ruled out foul play. CCTV footage and an autopsy may provide further insight into the case, especially if signs of trauma beyond the fall are found. The fact that a detective unit is handling the case suggests authorities see enough uncertainty to consider multiple possibilities. One particularly interesting detail is that Alves' boyfriend, Pedro Henrique, wasn't involved in this final recording. While he has publicly expressed his grief, the fact that he wasn't a part of her final act is interesting, to say the least. Given the nature of Elvis's work, their relationship likely had its complexities, but the circumstances of her passing make his absence all the more suspicious, especially since he has insisted that someone will be held accountable. His wording suggests that he suspects foul play, though it's unclear if that's based on specific knowledge or just grief-fueled ranting. Of course, this is just speculation, as Henrique hasn't been named as a suspect, and his absence doesn't necessarily mean anything. However, with so many unanswered questions, the investigation remains far from straightforward. Authorities have described the case as complex, leaving open the possibility of an accident or something more intentional. If this was an accident, something that seems to be happening more often as OnlyFans creators push boundaries for their fans, then it's a tragic reminder of the risks involved. If it was intentional, then it's even more devastating, as it would mean her fate was decided by someone else rather than a tragic misstep. Only time will tell. Click to watch one of these next videos.